The Colosseum, then, can we talk a little bit about that? I
Sure.
want to kind of get into that and the construction and what was going on there. Half of it's kind of missing, and there's a
Yes.
pretty cool story about that I know from your incredible YouTube channel
Oh, thank you.
that you have. You got a great video. I think that's one of your more popular videos, actually.
It's the most popular, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, let's walk us through some
Sure.
of just educate us about this structure.
Yeah. So the Colosseum, the Flavian Amphitheater, is the biggest and best Roman arena. It's designed for one thing, and that's for the gladiators, for the gladiatorial games. People can watch these famous contests play out. There are also beast hunts where they hunt exotic animals from as far away as the Serengeti in the arena, but it's really designed for the gladiatorial spectacles. It's built over the course of about a decade in the 70s AD,
Wow.
pretty quickly, actually.
Yeah, that's pretty quick.
By Vespasian and his sons, Titus and Domitian. And it's basically meant to be an oversized version of what they've already been building, these very large amphitheaters. And so it's quite tall. It's about 170 feet high around that circuit wall, but it's now almost hollow. It's been cored out by stone robbing over the course of the Middle Ages. So you look inside, you just see this kind of hollow skeleton. Imagine all that being cloaked in marble and having seats all around, about 45,000 seats, give or take. And below the arena, it's very elaborate. They call it the hypogeum, this underworld of cages and corridors in which they kept the animals and the stage machinery that would pop up through trapdoors. There have been 80 trapdoors in the arena. It's like in the movie Gladiator, where the tigers pop out and stuff. It's the same idea. Where beasts can appear suddenly, and even like whole artificial mountains can be made to materialize through that arena. So built around 70 to 80 AD, as I mentioned, and used for about 400 years, give or take. It's repaired many times. There was a giant fire in the 3rd century that destroyed, lightning hit the upper decks, which were all wooden, caused it to be, had to be restored for about a decade. But the seating is by social order. So if you're important, you're close to the action, close to the arena. And that's because they have this massive fence there that keeps the animals from leaping up and destroying you. It's also, so if you're a senator, you sit in the podium, which is the first 3 levels, these kind of broad tiers. And you bring your own cushioned seat, which is good. The rest of it's all just hard marble and pretty uncomfortable for over a long day. The equestrians, Rome's other aristocratic order, sit just above that. And then all of the commoners, the free commoners, organized by like trade organizations. There we go, yeah. So like the Maenianum is the main section. Mm-hmm. And the very highest bit, the Maenianum Secundum in Lignes, that means just the wooden highest part. In Lignes is in the beams. And that's where the slaves and women sat. So yeah, if you were a woman or if you were not free, you were in the nosebleeds.
It's a quick way to lose your wife, hanging out with all the slaves.
Well, just how it was done. If you're a senator, you can keep her with you. Everywhere else, like, sorry, honey, you're going up in the... have fun with the slaves.
Yeah.
But it was probably thought to be inappropriate for women for the most part. It was almost all a male audience, we assume.
Okay.
But yeah, it wouldn't be graceful, you would think. All right, see you, honey.
Yeah,
Enjoy the chickpeas up there.
Right. Enjoy the drinks.
Yeah.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, and there were, we think, vendors, by the way, who would sell things like chickpeas and other snacks.
Yep.
There were bathrooms built into the corridors, which is pretty cool. It was a very elaborate plumbing system. There were water fountains, actually, that would like spurt water continuously
Really? Wow.
in the frame. Really a very elaborate system. And it's thought that there were 80 entrances. 76 of them were public. And they were so well designed that you could fill or empty this whole building in about 15 minutes.
Wow.
Which is better than most modern stadiums, actually.
Yeah.
So and getting in, there weren't tickets. There were things called tesserae, these tokens or clay fragments, which you would present at the entrance. It was free to get in. There was never any admission charge. It was the emperor's gift each of the games.
That's crazy.
And
That's
then
cool.
we have accounts of the games here. Oh yeah, this is I think him giving out tesserae or something. Yeah, Libertalitas.
So how did you get? I mean, how did you get to be one of the people that was able to get one of those tablets to get into the thing?
By knowing somebody, basically, like anything. So if you were prominent, if you were a senator, you had an automatic invitation or an equestrian.
Okay.
Otherwise, we think they were given out en masse, like guilds, basically, these organizations of tradesmen, and they would have a certain number of seats available for their members. It's like, okay, if you're a member of the Fullers Guild or something, we have 30 tickets, you might get one of those seats. I don't know how you get them. You probably have to buy them. There's probably a secondhand market that's pretty fierce. Because there aren't that many games in Rome. There are lots of chariot races every day, or almost every day, in the Circus Maximus. That's the real mass spectator sport in the ancient world. But there's probably only, we assume, maybe a dozen games a year in the Colosseum.
Huh.
And so they're probably highly demanded, those tickets. People want to be in on that action.
Yeah, that would be a huge, like, to have one of those tablets to be able
Sure.
to get in. That's a huge deal. Did they ever have any streakers?
I was asked this once on Reddit. It's a great question. I love it. The answer is they would have died so fast if they tried it. Because, so here's the problem. So first of all, maybe you came up from below, like one of those trapdoors, you might have a chance briefly.
Yeah.
But there are Praetorian guards, archers, stationed all around that arena. You'd be pincushioned before you got 15 feet.
Right.
Almost certainly.
Right.
You're coming from the stands. So there's this enormous fence I mentioned before, which has within its iron fence with ivory rollers, so the animals couldn't climb up them, with elephant tusks and golden nets on top. So you have to scale that somehow from the one side, and then their guards again are stationed at intervals all along this barrier. So if you weren't like impaled on one of the elephant tusks, you'd be shot down when you try to get onto the arena in the first place. It takes quite some doing, in other words.
Yeah, solid security, better security than we have today, better entrance and exit, better design, better incredible
quite
games.
an arena.
Like,
Yeah.
and this was like did this come from some other like earlier designs, or was this just built from scratch?
There were earlier amphitheaters. Beginning in about, we think, the early 1st century BC, the Romans built these things. In Pompeii, for example, there's an amphitheater from about 80 BC. Which is much more primitive than the Colosseum. It's just kind of a big earthen ring with seats built in. There's none of these elaborate corridors and like water fountains and stuff. But it's a Roman innovation. Theaters. Here's the Pompeii amphitheater. Theaters were Greek. They used to have very elaborate theaters, but they were built into a hill almost always. They're just one side. There's none of the audience amenities that the Romans have. The Romans just mass spectacle is a Roman specialty in a lot of ways, and the Romans just get very good at building for it, a lot of infrastructure.
Right.
And of course, when the emperor's commissioning things, then you get the best.
Just to ask real quick, going back to the Colosseum, how often would games or events be held there?
It would vary from year to year, but we assume probably no more than a dozen times in an average year. Occasionally, the emperors would celebrate some massive triumph. So like Trajan, he had 123 days of games to celebrate his conquest of Dacia, modern Romania. And so probably they were at intervals, but almost the whole year would be games. Not every day would be gladiators. You'd have like beast hunts one day. You'd have, like animals doing tricks another day. But it'd be pretty infrequent in most years.